Today, I want to focus on a demo of using our in-house AI system, FredGPT, within the context of writing and applying for grants. So I just want to walk you through the process that I used a few weeks ago to apply for a grant at the NSF and kind of walk you through my thought process and how I used FredGPT. So to set the stage for you, I applied for a grant through the NSF. Last year, it was not funded, but I did get some pretty good panel reviews, right? So for any of you that hasn't gone through the NSF before, when the NSF either accepts or rejects a proposal, they typically send you a panel summary, as well as the individual panel reviewer comments. And then you have the opportunity to, like any other grant, take those comments, try to improve on your proposal, and reapply. So, like I said, I just want to walk you through what that looks like. So I am going to share my screen. Um, okay. Nick, just give me a thumbs up. You can see the screen. Cool. Okay, so this is FredGPT. It's fredgpt.fdu.edu. It's in the last kind of steps of beta testing before it gets sent out to all of the faculty. So some of you may have access, some of you may not, but hopefully within the next few weeks, everyone will. If you're not familiar with this layout, it looks very similar to ChatGPT. We have different models that we can run. So we have move this. We have either Llama or OpenAI GPT. This is the essentially Meta Facebook version, and this is the OpenAI version. Give you slightly different results, and you can use prompts and kind of test out both. For my purposes within engineering, the Llama 4 Scout typically provides better results for the types of stuff I do, but those in the humanities and social sciences might get totally different results. Um, and then we have over here, I'm going to pin this just so you can see, we can start a new chat. We can load in documents so that we can set the context space for the AI. And we have a general assistant, which is kind of our multi-purpose general assistant, as well as a website assistant. So this is a GPT that is specifically trained on the FTU website. So you can ask it stuff like, give me a list of all full professors, and it'll spit that out by searching the faculty directory, right? And then as we deploy this system, there's going to be more assistants that are going to be user specific. So maybe everyone in engineering might have an assistant that helps with engineering stuff, and everybody in nursing may have nursing specific assistants. But for right now, everyone should have the general and the FDU website assistant. So let me walk you through again the process I used to revise a grant proposal, specifically the project description, and using FredGPT to get out a pretty decent result. Um, Okay, so here, the first thing I want to do is I want to set the context. So I want to go into my documents and upload the documents that are relevant to this. Just to save us time, I've already done it. I have this folder here, Grants Workshop, and in here I have a bunch of stuff. I have the RFP from the NSF, so the solicitation. I have the old rejected version of the project description. I have all the panel reviewer comments in here in Word docs. And now what I can do once it's uploaded is I can chat with this folder. And when you see, I click here. Now down below, it says within the context, I'm uploading all of the files within this folder. And so everything I can ask, I can say, hey, file one, what do you think about this? File two, what do you think about this? And it knows what I'm talking about, right? So the first thing I want to do here is I just want to get my head around why I didn't get funded, right? What are the general themes of the panel reviewers that this AI can start to sense and say, hey, here are some things you might want to fix, right? So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to give it a prompt that looks something like this. And I'll skip over a lot of the details, but the first part is I'm setting the context, right? This is the task I'm trying to achieve. Next, I'm saying, I'm identifying what documents are what, right? So I'm telling it very specifically, the file entitled this is the panel reviewer one. The file entitled this is the panel summary, right? So now it knows what I'm trying to do, the general task I'm trying to complete, and it knows what all the files are. And then I say, please analyze these documents and be prepared to discuss, right? So this is just setting the stage. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to say, okay, great, I understand. It's going to confirm that it read all the documents and it now is ready to chat about them. So next, what I want to do is I want to say, hey, give me a summary of all of the areas that they talked about and try to synthesize some themes of things that I can improve on. So I'm going to give it this prompt. And it's going to go through and it's going to say, hey, here's generally what I found, right? So my proposal lacked clarity in the research question of the objective. There's room for improvement on my methodology. I can provide more detailed timelines, et cetera, right? And it's going to go through and it's going to give me just a summary of that document. And then it's going to prompt me to continue the conversation if I want, right? So it's going to give me a suggestion of, hey, do you want to chat more about this stuff or do you want to go in your own direction? Um, so now, what I want to do is I want to say, at least in my case, I now understand the issue with the panel reviewer comments. Can you now look at the grant proposal from last year and tell me within the grant proposal where these comments show up, right? So if there's a lack of methodology, description, where is there a lack of methodology description? Can you start to help me identify that, right? So I'm going to say, provide specific locations in that proposal um, to strengthen the methodology based on the panel reviewer's concern, right? So can we kind of merge these documents and start to understand patterns? And it's going to go through and it's going to say, hey, here's some spots where I think you could improve the methodology based on the types of comments we saw from the panel reviewer. So section 2.1, page 3 to 4, here's the current text, here's one suggested change, right? Here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And so this is going to start the process of helping me revise, right? I'm not using AI to write this whole thing for me. I'm using it as essentially a thought and writing coach to bounce ideas off of and help me identify blind spots as I move forward, right? Um, so let's say I go through and I do that, right? And I make a new version of the proposal. So now I have the 2025 version that I'm starting to get ready to submit. And I want to double check using this AI, did I actually adequately address all the comments, right? So I'll give it something like this. I have it upload an additional document, this new draft 1 2025, have the changes from the old document to the new document adequately addressed the concerns from the panel reviewers last year, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to go into the one that didn't get funded. It's going to go into my new draft. It's going to look at the differences, and then it's going to bounce those differences off of the panel reviewer documents, right? And so it goes through and it will say either yes or no. And when I did this, like I said a couple of weeks ago, there were a couple blind spots where I missed. I thought I had covered all the reviewer comments, and it said, "Hey, you missed this comment here and this comment here." And then it also, as always, hallucinated a bunch of stuff that wasn't useful, right? So I have to keep my brain on and filter through this and say, yeah, these are just brainstorming ideas pointing me in the right direction. I'm not just copy pasting text. I'm not taking this as fact. It's just helping me along the process, right? Um, I like to think of uh, FredGPT and any other AI system as an intern, right? It's going to help me along the process, but I have to check the work because half the time it's wrong, right? But it's still better than doing everything myself. And at least as an engineer, I am not a great writer. Um, and so skipping some of the synthesizing work and focusing on the editing and publishing work, at least for me, is a better workflow, right? Um, Okay, so I go through and I fix all my blind spots, let's say. So now let's take this document, forget the panel reviewers. I've addressed those comments. Now I can use FredGPT to help me brainstorm ways to make this a little more refined, a little more compelling, right? So one issue that I had with this is that I think the panel reviewers just weren't convinced that this problem really matters, right? The feeling I got was that they thought it was an interesting science question, not a compelling, applicable problem in the world, right? And so what I want to do is I want to reframe the introductory section to say, hey, this is a problem that matters now, and I want it to sound more compelling, right? And so now I can use FredGPT again as a bit of a thought coach and a writing coach to ask questions about it, right? So here I said something along the lines of, I have this draft. I want it more compelling on the introduction. Can you suggest changes to the wording for the first three paragraphs to make the research problem more compelling, urgent, and relevant to the values and priorities of the NSF, right? And it's going to give me a bunch of suggestions. Again, it's just a brainstorming. So here's the original, here's some revised, right? Um, and then here's the rationale for the changes. And so what I did is I ran this and prompted it slightly different ways. I used Llama, I used the OpenAI one, and I got just like 5 to 10 versions of the intro paragraph. And then I grabbed, oh, I like this sentence from here, this sentence from here. I hate all the third sentences, so I'm gonna have to write my own. Fourth sentence from here. And you just start to build up what I consider a much better draft than what I started with, right? Again, I'm using it as a tool. I'm not using it to replace um, my writing, my editing, my editorial decisions. Okay, so next, I can say something just to demo this, right? I can say something along the lines of, hey, I really like the first paragraph you did, but the second paragraph seems way too critical of previous research done in the field. I don't want to inadvertently offend any panel reviewers, right? So that what it came up with said there's no research done in this field, and the research that is done is terrible, and so we need to research this more, and that's not good from a uh, political standpoint, right? So I said just suggest a couple more iterations, and again, I'm just using this as a brainstorming tool. And so I go through um, and it gives me more suggestions. Um, and then next, similar is just more brainstorming. I thought my broader impact section was really weak. It was very tenuous, the connection between the work I was doing and the research. So I can start to ask it things like, um, are there any other broader impacts that you see that are typical in NSF broader impacts proposals that might fit better with this type of research, right? And again, it's going to give me ideas. It's going to give me all of these typical broader impacts, but instead of just Googling this stuff, it's going to give it specific to my proposal, right? So I can go to NSF website and look up example broader impacts, but this is saying, how would you apply it to your research specifically? Um, and in my case, I really liked when it suggested one of them was a citizen science component oh, um, to the proposal. And let me copy that over. And so I said something along the lines of, hey, one of these listed was citizen science. How specifically should I implement that? Right? And again, it'll give me a couple ideas of how to do citizen science. And then last, one issue that being in panel reviews, I know always gets dinged on grant reviews is when you have a broader impact section that's clearly just its own thing and it's not interlinked with the rest of the proposal. So the last thing I did here is I said, I don't want that to feel siloed and just shoved in at the end. Can you kind of show me 3 to 5 locations within the whole document of where I could integrate that broader impacts in so it's kind of sprinkled throughout the whole document and it's going to provide different sections. Hey, you could put it in the intro. Hey, you could put it in section 2, research and methods. Hey, you could put it in expected outcomes this way, right? And again, I mean, I should sound like a broken record here on purpose. I'm just using it as a writing coach. The last thing I want to show is within FredGPT, if I want to set specific context. So instead of it looking at all of the folders here, I can click on this file and within my documents, I can select specific documents. And so I say, forget everything else in the folder, just focus on these 2 documents. And here, this is my last step now. Whenever I write grants, is I grab my final draft, I grab the solicitation, I set those two as context, and I say, did I miss anything, right? Anyone who's gone through NSF solicitations knows that they are way too long to not fall asleep halfway through when you're reading them. So this is a great way to double check you didn't miss anything, right? So here I say, I have a new draft. I think it's my final draft. Can you look at this other PDF NSF 24-590 and confirm that it meets all the requirements and is aligned with the priorities set by the NSF, right? I'm hitting all of those big bullet items where the NSF says the reason this money exists is for X, Y, Z, right? I want to make sure that I am addressing those concerns and it fits that solicitation. Um, and again, it's saying, yep, you're within the 10-page limit. You're getting all your section headers right. You're in the right research area. You have a focus on broader impacts, so on and so forth, right? Um, so that, in a very quick nutshell, is how I kind of accelerated and made more efficient the process of revising a grant proposal using FredGPT. Hopefully, you glean something out of that to help you with your workflow applying for grants in the future. That's all I had.